Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing all these left-wing media lies. You know, it's pretty difficult to lie. When you lie, well, you constantly have to justify, you constantly have to keep that lie going, and it becomes more and more increasingly difficult. You have to work overtime to maintain that lie. It takes a real sophisticated individual or organization to pull that off, and especially pull that off on a long-term basis. Well, of course, as we know, the leftist media is no sophisticated organization, very much the opposite, and so already their lie about Donald Trump supposedly committing fraud in New York, defrauding the banks and governments out of hundreds of millions of dollars, it seems as though that lie is already crumbling as Democrats on air accidentally admit the truth. Well, actually not only admitting it on air, but also in the articles that they're writing for the New York Times. The corrupt leftist media strikes again. As per usual, they got frickin' egg on their faces. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's the clip we're talking about. MRC TV on Twitter writes, "The leftist media are shamelessly corrupt. After a judge ruled Donald Trump overinflated the value of his properties, CNN is now admitting that MaraLago is worth over $250 million.
You need at least 30 days to get any of these properties sold. But the property that you alluded to, MaraLago, potentially that could be something that could be sold quickly. I think the valuation is something in the hundreds of millions, and I think there could be a buyer for something like that.
And that would be literally, if you're talking about doing that between now and Monday, that's picking up the phone, calling someone, and them literally writing a check.
Yeah, I mean, there could be plenty of international people who want to buy that property. I mean, there's properties that are priced at 150 and 200 million that are nearby that. And Palm Beach is like the NVIDIA, of real estate. It's just shot up like a rocket. And people do want to live there. They've moved there. So I think that would be the best case scenario as to property. If he's trying to sell quickly, I would encourage that.
So, all right. Now, that's 240 million estimated. I mean, who knows? You know, he's a desperate seller. In this case, someone picks up the phone and makes that call this week. So I don't know what it'd be. That's still half. Right. Of what it would be.
Oops. I find that real interesting because wasn't Donald Trump accused a couple months ago of overinflating MaraLago by over $700 million? We all remember this infamous tweet from Letitia James. Donald Trump's Art of the Steal. The Art of the Steal, MaraLago 2018. Trump's value, $739 million. Appraised value, approximately 25. He enriched himself by over $700 million on one property, said possibly the dumbest, most corrupt person on planet Earth. Well, apparently, according to CNN, it's not worth 25 million. Is it worth 18? Is it worth 25? No, now it's worth 240. Which one is it? I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is neither. The answer is they're all a bunch of fools. The value of this property is completely subjective. CNN now says $240 million would be the approximate value if Donald Trump was forced to sell the property in a pinch if he needed to do it to make the deadline to afford his appeal, according to one news outlet that reported that as the fact. What does that mean? I'm so confused. Which one is it? At one point, I think Forbes, if I'm not mistaken, claimed the property was worth anywhere from $500 to $1 billion. Trump's right in that range. The point that I'm trying to make here is that it's a guessing game. The media told us, no, it's not a guessing game. We know the value of these properties and Trump lied and that's fraud. But last week, as we were talking about the possibility of Trump having to sell his properties, now all of a sudden everyone wants to speculate. We know the value of properties, just look at the tax assessment, said the real estate illiterate. We went from knowing the value and proving the value in court to now it's just a guessing game. And literally, I mean, that's what the media is saying. Untangling Trump's real estate. This was an actual article notification from the New York Times. Donald Trump owes $454 million by Monday or risks losing some properties. But experts say valuing the buildings would be a guessing game. What the man? You couldn't be this corrupt if you tried. You couldn't be this much of a liar if you tried. This is why we keep seeing the whole structure fall apart all the time. These Democrats build these flimsy narrative structures on top of a mountain of lies, and then of course comes the, let's call it accidental truths landslide. The land itself starts shifting over and then the whole thing freaking collapses. Because it's impossible. The left-wing media is incompetent enough. They don't possess enough control over the flow of information to be able to maintain these sort of dishonest narratives. I mean, for Pete's sakes, let's really just take a look at this. Look at what's on the screen. Somebody at the New York Times actually wrote and released this, and the editorial board approved it. Experts say valuing the buildings would be a guessing game. So Donald Trump is now guilty of fraud because he guessed the value of his properties and the banks accepted his values. Apparently it's fraud when Trump does it, but when they do it because they want to steal his buildings to sell them, well, it's totally appropriate. Guessing at that point is totally appropriate because we don't know the actual values. None of their claims make any sense. You know, Jon Stewart's been facing some heat lately after he exposed himself as a complete dishonest frickin' hack. He said this.
And the Attorney General of New York knew that Trump's property values were inflated because when it came time to pay taxes, Trump undervalued the very same properties. It was all part of a very sophisticated real estate practice known as lying. So the judge calculated that the value that he gained from the lying with interest was around $454 million. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, that sounds pretty straightforward. Whatever gains you got from lying, you have to pay back. Well, that's because you're a idiot.
Which sounds smart, and of course, to the average person who understands nothing and has no adult experience in real estate and finances, it sounds like Jon Stewart's right, but the reality is, it's nothing but more lies. Quote, Donald Trump supposedly lowered the value of his property so he could pay less in taxes. Who is responsible for tax assessments and valuations? I'll tell you one thing, it's not Donald Trump. How is it his fault? How did he lower the tax value of his own property? But don't question any of that. Just listen to the guy who sold a $17 million penthouse where the tax value was $800,000. You know, either I'm dumb and I'm missing something, or these people are utterly dishonest and they're purposely misrepresenting the truth here. As a property investor, you do an estimate of what you think your property is worth. You take the revenue, you apply some sort of multiple. In Donald Trump's case, you probably, add a certain premium because of the materials he uses in his buildings, the quality of construction, the brand, and in the case of MaraLago, the historic relevance. And so you appraise your own building, you present that to the bank, and then the bank either accepts or doesn't accept that. They do their own appraisal. They do their own evaluations. And the same thing with tax assessments. The government assesses your parcel of land or your property, ascribes a value, and then says you owe us X amount every year, and that has nothing to do with market value. But Democrats want you to now believe that that's fraud, even though they're essentially admitting that nobody actually knows what Trump's buildings are actually valued at, because, quote, it's a guessing game. Absolutely absurd. And how many flashbacks have we done at this point proving that they've done nothing but lie about Donald Trump's properties? I mean, let's just go to MaraLago, for instance. They're now saying it's worth $240 million. That's completely ridiculous. It's one of the biggest plots of land in Florida. The level of detail in the architecture, it's out of this world. It's a freaking marvel. And even the leftist media a couple years ago was able to admit that.
Donald Trump's home here in Palm Beach is quickly earning the title Winter White House. It's a storied estate steeped in history. Mr. Trump has spent the past 20 Thanksgivings here. But now, as president-elect, everything is different. The 20-acre estate was originally built by serial heiress Marjorie Merriweather Post. She actually envisioned it as a winter retreat for U.S. presidents. Now, some say it's the most valuable parcel of land anywhere in Florida. Much of the 126-room estate is used by the members-only MaraLago Club.
Quote, it's the most valuable parcel of land anywhere in Florida. I find that interesting because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of properties in Florida worth over $100 million. I think, didn't a home sell for like a record $200 million recently in Florida? So a single family home sold for $200 million in Florida, but Donald Trump's, quote, most valuable parcel of land and property in the entire state is only worth $240, even though it's a single family home or a massive mansion, a presidential mansion. It's more lavish than the freaking White House. And then it includes a private club with over 100 properties. Give me a break. MaraLago is worth $1 billion frickin' dollars. Donald Trump's right. He didn't commit fraud. The banks knew exactly what they were doing. They gave Donald Trump construction loans on the values he presented to them, probably because they agreed. The left is simply twisting the facts and misrepresenting numbers, purposely confusing tax-assessed value with market value. They keep stumbling all over themselves, accidentally admitting the truth. They are the biggest liars, the biggest scoundrels, the most corrupt people and organizations on the freaking globe. They are everything they tell you Trump is, as people and as an entity. And here we go, yet again, another mountain of lies is collapsing right before our very eyes. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.